find stationary points, you let, sorry, this is stationary points, okay? Let dy dx be equal to 0. Okay, but also remember that you don't want this to just come out of the middle of nowhere, okay? So let's actually do an example, okay? A question would be, find all the stationary points for y equals x squared. Okay? So, what do? The first thing you do is differentiate. Okay? Now, here's what I want you to avoid, okay? You know in your head, you're like, okay, the direction I'm heading in is this, okay? I want dy and dx to be equal to 0. So an instinctive next thing to write would be 2x is equal to 0, okay? Because that's what you're going to solve, okay? However, it just kind of comes out of the middle of nowhere. In terms of your working, it's like, well, when is this true? Is it always true? Why are you working this out, okay? So therefore, this is the thing I put in quotes before, okay? In between these lines, I would say, stationary points exist when dy on dx, sorry, y on x equals 0, okay? And rather than saying therefore here, this is actually not a conclusion. This is something I'm trying to work out. It's the problem, not a conclusion. So I say instead of therefore, I say ie, as in, you know, stationary points exist when the derivative is 0, and what that looks like, that is this, okay? So then you solve it. Okay, now what I've done so far is I've found the x value for the stationary point, okay? But in anywhere else under coordinate geometry, if I said find a point, I don't just want an x value, I also want a y value, right? So you found the x value, how do you find the y value? Bring it back to your original equation, okay? So I would say when x equals 0, y equals 0 squared, which is also 0, okay? So again, I'm trying to avoid, you know, the next line being y equals 0. Like, where'd that come from? Okay, it's kind of random, especially when you've got more working there. So I'm going to say, why am I looking at y equals 0? It's when x equals 0, that's the value I input. Okay, so, now that I've done all my working, I'm going to conclude. I would say, therefore, there's a stationary point at 0, 0.
Can you SP?
Okay, you really should write stationary point. You really should write stationary point. I want to say, like at the beginning, right? We would introduce acronyms as we become more comfortable with stuff. This is really new for most of us, right? And this is the first exam where you're getting it. So, stat point's a little better. To be honest, I don't think I ever remember a mark getting taken off for someone saying SP rather than, you know, this, that, the other. But we're just trying to firm down the topic, and like, I don't want you to start doing SPs for so long, right from the beginning, and then, you know, 6 months later you're like, what is an SP? Well, I don't know, it stands for something. I want you to get what it really means.
This is what SP and Game Boy Advance SP stands.
Game Boy stationary point, yeah, okay. Anyway, so, that's how to find a stationary point. That's not too hard.